and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how to make a mask to protect yourself from someone in your household who has the coronavirus. The government has announced two potentially conflicting pieces of advice. The first is that the surgical medical grade masks must be reserved for frontline key workers, which obviously makes sense. There's a limited number of them and the materials made to use them are rare. So that's the melt bound plastic non-woven fabric that is used to make the air filters in these medical masks. It's very difficult to manufacture. There isn't the amount of it that's required globally at this point in time, and so those masks that are available and that are being manufactured need to be reserved for frontline medical staff. That all makes sense. The second piece of advice that the government has given is that if someone in your household is coughing, is symptomatic, then they should wear a mask to protect the other people in your household. Similarly, if you are coughing and you have symptoms and you need to leave the house to go and say buy urgent supplies, if there's nobody local who can go and do your shopping for you and you can't get it online delivered, then you should be wearing a mask when you leave the house. But where are you supposed to get these masks? What sort of masks are you supposed to use? So I've done a bit of research and I've come up with some information that I think might be useful, and I've also come up with a couple of patterns for different styles of masks that you can make using things that are easily accessible, things that you might already have around the home. So the key thing when it comes to face masks is the type of materials used and the purpose behind them. So a face mask is to cover your nose and mouth so that when you're coughing and sneezing, the particulates that are expelled from you that would have a certain range of spray and land on certain surfaces or on other people is contained. So the size of these particulates is absolutely minuscule. And the reason that standard fabric, you know, a piece of cotton over the face, isn't really sufficient is that standard fabric is woven, and a woven fabric is where the fibres have been spun together to form a thread, and those threads have then been woven together in a grid-like format with the warp and the weft, and in between the threads there are holes, regular holes. Now these are minuscule in realistic terms when we look at them, but when it comes to a virus, the particles that we're talking about are so small that those holes are like giant chasms. So a normal woven fabric is simply not sufficient to block all of the particulates that are expelled during, say, a cough. So the non-woven fabric that is used in medical grade face masks is a melt-bound plastic-based non-woven fabric. Now that's very difficult to manufacture and there's only a limited supply of it. But other non-woven fabrics will do a better job than a standard woven fabric of containing the particulates. Now the reason for this is that rather than the fibres being spun together to form threads and then the threads being woven together to form this grid pattern, in a non-woven fibre all the fibres are just randomly and loosely packed together, and then water and motion is used to knit those fibres together. Now they knit together not just in one single layer like a woven fabric, but in multiple layers of thickness. And because of the random nature of how those sort of squiggled up things all intertwine, and the fact that there are so many layers of them, the number of holes and the size of those holes that go all the way through the fabric from the front to the back is actually much less than on a standard woven fabric, because on a standard woven fabric all the holes go straight through from the front to the back in a straight shot, whereas in a woven fabric, because of this random nature and the multi-layered nature of it, there are going to be fibres crisscrossing and getting in the way at different points in each of the sort of levels of that sandwich, and that's what's going to help trap those particulars. So a non-woven fabric is preferable to a woven fabric. So where can you find non-woven fabrics in things that you might be able to find in your everyday life and around your home? So tissue paper, toilet tissue, kitchen roll. This is a non-woven textile. It's not a fabric in that it's made from wood pulp paper, but essentially it's a fibrous non-woven textile. The only problem with tissue paper or kitchen roll is that you can't wash it and reuse it, so it needs to be disposable. It needs to be something that you can take out of your face mask and throw in the dustbin after each outing, after each use. Whereas a non-woven fabric would be more sustainable because you could wash it and reuse it multiple times. So I'm going to cover some different styles that allow you to make a face mask for use with tissue paper or kitchen roll, but also that allow you to use it with a non-woven fabric. So examples of non-woven fabric that you might be able to find around the home are felt. So whether that's a natural fibre felt like wool or llama or alpaca fibres that have been felted together, or whether that's an acrylic or a polyester felt like a craft felt that you might have for crafting. The other thing that you might be able to find around the home that's a non-woven textile is things like baby wipes, makeup removing face wipes and cleaning kitchen surface wipes. These disposable wipes that you get in the plastic packets, these are usually non-woven textiles. So if you look at it and it's not in a grid pattern, it's a non-woven textile. These could be used as the padding, as the blocking barrier between your nose and mouth and the outside world. So I'm going to show you 3 different styles of mask that we're going to make today. So you will need fabric, you will need a needle and thread or a sewing machine, you will need a pair of scissors, you will need some string, elastic or ribbon, something to fasten it behind your ears or around the back of your head, and you will need your non-woven textile of choice. So the 3 styles of masks that we're going to look at, the first is basically to hold the non-woven textile against your face. So in this case we're looking at a concertina style, so it's got pleats in it so that it can mould around the contours of your face, but it's essentially just a square piece of fabric that's been concertinaed, and it will go over your nose and mouth, and you'll be able to put your tissue paper between it and your face and hold your tissue paper in place. So this style of mask has been done with a single loop of elastic that's been threaded through one side and through the other, knotted, and then that's been fed back into there. This is personally my favourite style of fastening because it goes one strand over and one strand under the ear, all around the back of the head. It doesn't place any pressure on anywhere, and it's elasticated, so it's quick and easy to get on and off in a hurry. So that's the elasticated large loop fastening and the simple concertina style mask that will need to hold some form of non-woven fabric or textile or tissue paper up against your face. The second style of mask is a pocket mask. So in this mask we've essentially taken this shape and sewn the rounded edges together to form a contoured mask that will fit over your nose and mouth and is contoured to hold close to the shape of your face. This has then been sewn to form a pocket, and that pocket can contain your non-woven textile of choice. In this case I've got some polyester craft felt. And you can then remove the polyester craft felt and wash the covering and put in any other textile, any other non-woven textile of your choice. So if you were using say dried baby wipes or something like that to use as your non-woven textile, then when you come in you simply remove your baby wipe and put it in the bin or put it in the wash, and then put this in the wash separately. This one has been done with a ribbon in the same way that the elasticated one has been done, except one end of the ribbon is left loose. And when you put this over your head, that loose part would simply be tied in a bow behind your head. So that's the pocket style of face mask. And finally we have the all-in-one style face mask. So this is made in the same way. It's essentially a sandwich of 3 different layers. You've got your inner lining layer of woven fabric and your outer layer of woven fabric. And then between those you have the sandwich layer of your non-woven textile. Now, the reason that I like this one is because non-woven textiles like felt, quilt batting, the baby wipes and things, they will tend to stick to other things when you put them in the washing machine. The nature of unwoven textiles that the fibres within it, when they get wet and agitated, they try and bind to other fibres around them, hence the felting process. And this is what will happen when you try and put your felt or your non-woven textile in the washing machine loose. Once it's in here, it can only bind to the outer and inner layer of this. So it's going to be very simple to just take this whole thing off and pop the whole thing in the washing machine and then take the whole thing out again. The only con of this is that you will need multiples of these because they do take a while to dry. So if you need to go out again quickly, because there's so many layers and you can't separate them to dry, it's going to take longer to dry. So you might need to make 2 so that you can have one in the wash and one ready to go at any time. This one's been done with simple elasticated ear loops around the sides, and these simply hook over the ear. The very straightforward to put on and off, and the elasticated nature makes it very quick. However, the pressure of these will pull your ears forward, so it's important to make these as loose as possible, these elasticated rings. You can use a hair tie or another form of hair elastic or something to make these loops instead if you don't have any sort of sewing elastic. So those are the 3 types of mask and the 3 types of fastening that you could make. If we go back to the non-woven textiles, if you're going to use any kind of disposable wipe, make sure you wash them and rinse them and leave them to dry before you use them. You don't want to be breathing in chlorine or something from a cleaning wipe, for example. You want to have washed those thoroughly before you use them. If you're going to use something like a paper version, a tissue paper or a kitchen roll, make sure that you dispose of those as soon as you have finished with them. So on to the care of your face mask. When you come in from your excursion out, you're going to want to wash your face mask. You're going to want to wash your face mask on a regular basis if you're trapped in the house with someone who is coughing and you change their face mask and give them a nice clean one, then you're going to want to wash that face mask. So you should be washing these at least 60 degrees Celsius. I read somewhere that the 60 degrees Celsius is a good temperature for potentially denaturing the virus, so that's good. And you do want to be washing these in detergent because, as we know, soap helps to break down the lipids in the outer skin of the virus. So those are the 2 parts of the cleaning instructions, and make sure that you wash them regularly. Finally, I want to make a disclaimer that wearing a face mask should not give you a false sense of protection. It's a good barrier to stop you spreading and transmitting the infection. It's not necessarily going to protect you from catching the infection. Your eyes are still exposed. You still come in from going out and you've potentially got particulates on your clothing. You take your mask off, you rub your clothing, you rub your face. You see what I mean? It's no guarantee that it's going to protect you from catching the virus. It's still vitally important that you practice the things that the government has laid out. You practice washing your hands and you practice social distancing or self-isolation. The face mask is only really of a certain benefit, which is to help prevent the spread of particulates from someone who is actively coughing or sneezing and spreading the virus in that way. So take your 12-inch square of fabric and fold it so that you've got 5 pleats and pin them into place. You want these to be equally spaced, and you want the width at this point to be either 4 inches or 10 centimetres. And then you want to iron those pleats into place. And make sure that you press it on both sides. You're then going to run a line of stitching along either end to hold the pleats in place, and you're also going to run lines of stitching on either side, leaving a gap of about 2 inches in the centre where the nose area is, which is where you want these concertinas to be able to play. So you want that gap to be at least 2 inches, preferably a little bit wider, and have 2 lines of stitching that are going to be visible and 1 line of stitching that's going to get taken up in the hem at the edge in the seam allowance. hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, it really does help. And if you enjoy how-to videos like this, then make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you'll be notified every time I send out a new video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.